The stroke of midnight. Jenny opened her eyes. She admitted she had probably drunk too much water before going to bed, but she also didn't like having a dry mouth in the middle of the night, so she accepted the consequences. She glanced over at the clock on the nightstand. The stroke of midnight, she mused. If this were a story, soon-to-be princesses would be running away from grand balls, magical gardens would be revealed, writers like myself would be whisked away to 1920s Paris to hang out with the likes of Ernest Hemingway and Salvador Dali. But no, I just have to pee. She released a grunt as she threw back the blanket and got out of bed. Walking down the hallway to the washroom, a shock of pain in her knee took her off balance for a second, causing her to grab onto the hat of a nearby Christmas gnome to stabilize herself. Sitting on the toilet, her mind spun into action, as it did most of the moments when she was awake. What's happening to me? She wondered with a sigh. I don't know whether I'm already almost 50 or I'm only almost 50, but it feels like I'm falling apart, and there could be decades more of this before it's all finished. True, the aches and pains weren't permanent yet. They always managed to work themselves out eventually, and she was, by all accounts and numbers, in good health. But Jenny couldn't help thinking it was the beginning of the end. Nonetheless, she tried to make the most of every day and bring joy to the world as a children's author, fighting the occasional urge to send an "it's all downhill from here, kids" message in her books. Jenny washed her hands, reveling in the flow of warm water that always made her feel like she was floating in a heated swimming pool. While still grasping the towel she was using to dry her hands, she heard a rustling from the living room. "What was that?" she whispered. Her fight-or-flight mode was immediately activated, and she was going to fight. "Why didn't I bring my phone with me into the washroom?" she lamented. "Now I can't call 911. She looked for something she could grab to defend herself against an intruder, but all she had close by was a ceramic giraffe sitting on a small table under the towel. It would have to do. "It's just you and me, Jenny," she said as she grabbed the giraffe. Maybe it was the adrenaline coursing through her body, but she found it all as exciting as it was terrifying, like she was in a movie. She crept as quietly as she could down the hallway, hoping she could catch the intruder off guard. She had always thought it was entertaining when people on TV shows or in movies would call out, hoping the invader would run away, when, in her mind, it was just giving them time to prepare for any attack. Jenny turned the corner to enter the living room, flicking the light switch on the wall, ready to pounce. She saw an elderly man with a white beard dressed in a red suit, sitting in her favorite cream leather chair. He shot her a radiant smile. "Ah, there you are, Jenny," the man started. "I was hoping I wouldn't have to wake you. I know how it can catch folks by surprise to see me standing in their bedrooms. Have a little too much water before bed again, did we?" "Okay, I know I'm not dreaming because I haven't gone back to bed yet," Jenny said out loud, thinking she was just talking to herself. Her mind entertained all sorts of dangerous explanations for this man's appearance in her home. She held up the giraffe like a weapon, her thoughts shooting out of her mouth as fast as she could think them. "Who are you? What are you doing here? Did you escape from somewhere? Are you that shopping mall Santa who's come to shake me down because I put that $50 bill in the kettle a couple of days ago and you thought I was made of money?" The man chuckled, his laughter sounding like bells floating on a light breeze. "Very generous of you indeed, Jenny, but none of those things." He stood up. "I am Santa Claus." Jenny had no intention of believing him. "No, you're not." The man was amused. "I'm not?" "No, you're not, because A, Santa doesn't actually exist, B, I don't even have a chimney for a real Santa to climb down, and C, it's not Christmas Eve. It's only December 21st, so..." The man took off his black leather gloves and held them in his hand. "Well, if you look back in history, I used to do just fine coming in through windows. I'm nothing if not adaptable. And Christmas Eve, as you know, is my busy night, so I couldn't very well pop by then, could I?" He looked down at the ceramic giraffe and winked. "I think you can put Ginny down now." How did he know she had named the giraffe Ginny? Jenny was starting to wonder if this man, despite all logic and reason, might actually be the real Santa Claus. She had no way of knowing. It's not like she could quiz him. If he was the real deal, she wouldn't be able to tell if he was telling the truth or not, because what did she know? And if he was an imposter, she had no greater access to information about Santa or the North Pole than he would have, fictitious or not. She placed the figurine on the table beside the couch. But why are you here? The supposed Santa moved closer to meet Jenny's gaze. Jenny marveled at what a clear and sparkling shade of blue his eyes were, like a lake that had freshly frozen over, glistening in the light of the sun. When you were a child, you sent me a letter saying that, in addition to a copy of Charlotte's Web and a new sticker album, you wished to meet me. Jenny vividly remembered writing that letter using her favorite pencil, the one with the purple pom-pom on top. But that was over 40 years ago. I've already read Charlotte's Web probably 10 times, and the only sticker I own now is the registration sticker on the license plate on my car, she argued. I'm not a child anymore. Santa shrugged his shoulders. Well, you didn't exactly give me a deadline, kiddo. And sometimes I use a bit of discretion and show up when I feel I'm going to be needed most. This topic of conversation opened up a whole new set of questions for Jenny. So do you do this a lot? Why have I never heard about this before? Do you use a device to erase memories like the neuralizer from Men in Black or something? She was fascinated by such technological gadgets and was kind of intrigued by the possibilities. Oh, I do like that movie, Santa laughed, again like the tinkling of bells. You know, many would consider me to be an alien of sorts, but it's not quite like that. People remember the encounter, but more as a dream. Something beautiful, but vague. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure how it works myself. I just go with it. So even Santa himself doesn't exactly know how he does what he does, Jenny said. Interesting. Okay, fair enough, but why now? You said you'll show up when someone needs you. What makes you think I need you now? Well, Jenny, I've been watching you, and... He sees you when you're sleeping, Jenny started to sing on cue. He knows when you're awake. Pretty much, Santa admitted. Now I completely encourage the expression of emotions and would never scold a child for crying or pouting. So they were mistaken on some accounts, but they did get the omniscient part right. At any rate, I've been watching you, and you need to get in touch with your child again. My child? Jenny almost jumped. Oh, but I don't have any children, or do I? Did I get some sort of amnesia? I have no idea what's going on right now. No, you don't have children or amnesia, Santa reassured her. I mean the child within yourself. You've been acting like your life is almost over when there's so much left to go. Oh, great, Jenny said like she had just been struck with a curse. Santa put his hand on her shoulder. Listen, you think it's only downhill from here and there are no more surprises left. Well, surprise! He stretched out his arms and unleashed a smile that Jenny swore increased the wattage of the lighting in the room. No kidding! She couldn't help but laugh. This was not exactly something that happened to her every day, or any day for that matter. So what happens now? She asked. Do you just say hi and then move on to the next bedraggled, disenchanted, middle-aged woman? Santa put his gloves back on and pointed towards the front door. Want to go for a ride? Jenny couldn't believe what she was hearing. Really? Then her mind went to some of the other characters of the Santa legacy. Are they out there? Santa took Jenny's coat off its hook by the door. All 9 of them. Jenny squealed with delight as Santa helped her put on her coat, so excited that she forgot to lock the door behind her. The cold wind that would normally sting her face felt like a light breeze. She was so warm inside. As they turned the corner of the house and reached the backyard, she could only imagine the attention it would have attracted in front. There stood a sleigh upholstered in red velvet with gold accents, being pulled by 9 of the most glorious reindeer she had ever seen. Not that she had actually seen reindeer before, but she couldn't have imagined anything more beautiful. 9 majestic creatures at least 8 feet tall to the shoulder, with several more feet of strong tree-like antlers. Did she detect a bit of a sparkle? Eyes that were so intense and focused, you knew nothing would distract them from their mission. They were a force you would not dare to reckon with. "Look at them," Jenny marveled. "They are just magnificent, and bigger than I thought they would be." Santa laughed. "Well, you can't exactly have squirrels pulling a sleigh of this size now, can you?" Jenny giggled at the visual. Then she noticed something unexpected. "Is that Rudolph at the front? I thought her nose was supposed to be glowing." She had read somewhere that all of Santa's reindeer would in fact be female because the males shed their antlers in the winter, while the females didn't. She was rather proud of herself for knowing that fact. "Oh, that?" Santa patted Rudolph on the neck. "I visited Robert L. May back in the 1930s, and the old girl here had a bit of a cold at the time. He blew things out of proportion a little." "Cold, blew, ha!" He was amused at his turn of phrase. "But as I said, a visitation is like a dream, and I guess he remembered her nose is glowing." "So he didn't totally make Rudolph up," Jenny remarked. There was a common belief that even if Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen actually existed, Rudolph had to be fictional since she first appeared rather randomly in May's popular tale from 1939. Santa pointed to the sleigh's plush velvet seat. "Hop in." "Where are we going?" Jenny thought it might be better kept a surprise, but she had to ask. She suspected it would be a little jaunt around the block. "You'll see," Santa said with a smile. Jenny took Santa's gloved hand as she climbed into the sleigh and took a seat. She still didn't know what to think. Was this some incredibly lucid dream? Was she going to wake up at any moment? Santa came around the other side of the sleigh and got into the driver's seat. "You ready?" he asked her. Can a person ever be ready for something like this? Jenny's stomach was churning with butterflies. She wasn't a great flyer at the best of times, and this was taking things to a completely different level. Santa winked. "Here we go." He took the reins and called out at full volume. "All right, ladies." The reindeer snapped to attention and started to snort with anticipation. "To the North Pole!" Did he say the North Pole? Santa flicked the reins and the reindeer took off with surprising force. Jenny thought she was going to fall out of the sleigh, but somehow knew that was basically impossible. After so many centuries, she figured they would have incorporated seat belts into the design if it had been necessary. As they flew, the sights left Jenny speechless. All of the twinkling holiday lights, the frosted trees in the forests, the frozen lakes, the mountains. The view from an airplane could be impressive in its own way at times, but to have the wind running through your hair, feeling like you could touch a treetop if you reached over far enough. Hearing the reindeer breathe as their powerful legs pushed through the air, carrying them higher and higher. It was all just indescribable. An idea popped into Jenny's head. "Can't everybody see us?" she asked. "I mean, we're flying through the sky." "You know William Moulton Marston?" Santa asked, "the fellow who thought up Wonder Woman?" "I know Wonder Woman," Jenny confirmed. "I took him up in 1941. That's how he got the idea for the invisible jet." "No kidding." Jenny realized she was saying that a lot. "So nobody can see us?" "Nobody can hear me or see me or the sleigh unless I want them to." That explains a lot, doesn't it? Why no one can ever find you on Christmas Eve. Santa stood up a bit taller in his seat. "Jenny, you know how I said I would show up when you needed me?" "Sure." "Well, to be honest, I need you." "You need me? But you're Santa Claus. Aren't you magical? Can't you do practically anything you want? How can you possibly need me?" "You see," Santa explained, "some of my elves may be hundreds of years old, but they're all young at heart, and they really enjoy your books, particularly How Much Chocolate Can One Mouse Eat? I think that one is their favorite. I hear them talking about it all the time." To say she was flattered couldn't fully capture what Jenny was feeling at that moment. Santa's elves were fans of her books? Who would care about being on top of the New York Times bestseller list if you had that kind of endorsement? Did the elves look at Goodreads? Jenny was imagining what would happen if one of them left a review, not that anyone would believe it was real. Cool, she replied. Santa laughed, realizing that was not what Jenny had been expecting to hear, and a more elaborate response would be hard to come by. He took a deep breath and continued. So, I was thinking you might have fun reading them the story and then doing a little book signing. You want me to read? To the elves? Up at the North Pole? Only if you want to, of course. No pressure at all. He gave her a little nudge and touched his nose with his index finger. But it would provide some good inspiration for your future books, don't you think? No kidding, Jenny agreed. Imagine writing Christmas stories after having seen how it all happens in person. Of course I'll do it. How could anyone refuse such an offer? Wonderful, Santa cried, clapping his hands together. Jenny suddenly became aware of her clothing. But am I dressed all right? She asked. I don't have a scarf, hat, or mitts, and I'm in my pajamas. And isn't it really cold up there? Santa patted the seat. I've got you covered, kiddo. She liked it when he called her that. It made her feel young again. There are scarves and such under the seat. They made it into a bench so there would be more storage. Rather handy, I'd say. Especially for keeping shrubs and herbs for the girls and the extra cookies after I've had my fill. But it's really not as cold as you would think. How are you feeling right now? He asked. Jenny assessed her body temperature. I'm surprisingly comfortable, actually, she replied. Not hot, of course, but certainly not cold. They call it the Santa glow, Santa said, swirling his right hand like the Queen's wave. No one is ever cold when they're in my presence. I couldn't tell you why, I just roll with it. He laughed and pointed to his outfit. I even wear most of this just to keep up with the winter aesthetic. I used to need it when I started in my homeland, but now I'll be toasty in a t-shirt and shorts. Cool, Jenny said yet again. Or not cool. She laughed at her own joke. Then, but wait. As children, we're told to leave out carrots for the reindeer. If you keep herbs for them on the sleigh, does that mean carrots are not actually part of their diet? Afraid not. It's a sweet gesture, though. I bring them home and we use them for soups and stews, and the missus likes to make the occasional carrot cake. My bag is almost as full when I get back to the North Pole as when I left. No kidding. Jenny could feel the sleigh losing a bit of altitude. Like a bolt of lightning shooting out of an endless white cloud, a group of buildings covered in lights revealed itself from behind a ridge of trees. This must be Santa's village, she thought. We're almost there, Santa confirmed. As they descended, the details became clearer. A giant clock stood on top of a large central structure counting down the days to Christmas. 4 days to Christmas scrolling by in red and green lights. A barn, the tallest barn she had ever seen, stood beside what appeared to be a greenhouse. Every tree was festively decorated, every building glowing like a miniature sun. Small people with pointy hats were scurrying around, carrying boxes, some driving forklifts filled with who knows what. The sled was heading towards 2 lines of icy blue lights that appeared to be a sort of runway. Jenny gasped as the lights suddenly changed to red and green and began to shimmer like those on the Eiffel Tower. So pretty, she cooed. Isn't it just? Santa nodded. When we get below 100 feet, the lights change so the elves know I've almost arrived. The landing was as smooth as could be expected considering the vehicle they were in. Elves hopped into action, guiding the reindeer to the barn. One sweet-faced fellow even took Jenny's hand and helped her out of the sled. Oh, thank you, she said as she accepted the assistance and alighted from the sleigh, holding back the urge to give the elf a big hug and pinch his adorable red cheeks. He was just so cute. How is the trip? Another elf asked Santa. Easy breezy lemon squeezy, he replied. Then he leaned in and whispered. She was a little skeptical at first, almost hit me with a giraffe, but I got through to her. You always do, the elf said with a wink. Now, there was a bit of a hiccup with the ball machine when you were gone, but Blinky fixed it in no time, so we're still on track. Santa looked pleased. She's a technical wizard. She can fix anything. And the candy canes? The maple bacon flavor went over brilliantly with our test group, but the Carolina Reaper and wasabi was a no-go, I'm afraid. That amount of heat and spice was rather unpleasant for many of the participants. Okay, most of them. Some of them started to cry.
Well, we can't have that, can we? Santa declared. He put on his best Tom Hanks impression. There's no crying at Christmas. Then he chuckled and patted the elf on the back. But we must keep experimenting and trying new things, mustn't we?
Indeed. Onward and upward, sir, the elf agreed.
Now, would you mind bringing Jenny to Mrs. Claus so she can get settled? I need to check something on the naughty and nice list so I can intervene before it's too late.
Certainly, Santa. The elf walked up to Jenny and put out her hand. Come with me, Miss Jenny. It's time for you to get ready.
Okay. She took the elf's hand and they started walking towards what appeared to be a cottage that almost looked like it was made of gingerbread. What's your name?
Sprinkles, the elf giggled. We're so excited you could join us. I love your books. I think Whistle Over the Thistle is my favorite.
I'm so glad, Sprinkles. I really enjoyed writing it. So where are we going exactly?
We're going to see Mrs. Claus so you can get ready for your reading.
I'm going to meet Mrs. Claus, too?
Of course, Sprinkles said with a smile as they approached the door to the cottage.
Before they could knock, a woman with white hair in a bun, wearing small round glasses and a green and white dress, answered the door. Jenny, hello, dear. Come on in, she said, gesturing her to come inside. She addressed the elf with a nod. Thank you for bringing her over, Sprinkles.
Of course, ma'am, the elf replied with a little bow before taking her leave.
Jenny stepped over the threshold into the cottage and curtsied on instinct. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Claus. Oh, call me Mary, dear, Mrs. Claus corrected. How was your ride up? I'm still processing, but it was amazing. This has all been amazing. She surveyed her surroundings and was inundated with what she could only describe as an overload of Christmas cuteness. Lush greenery wound around the staircase, fairy lights lit up tables and windows, a green velvet chair sat next to a crackling fireplace, bookended by the most glorious Christmas tree she had ever seen, and the entire room smelled of cinnamon and nutmeg. Mary looked Jenny over, taking note of her holiday-themed pajamas covered in penguins wearing Santa hats, and sighed. He got you sleeping again, didn't he? Jenny looked down at her ensemble. You mean they haven't caught on to the bedtime chic look up here at the North Pole? She joked. Mary laughed. You're funny. I've told him so many times to make his visits earlier in the evening. It's not like he has to worry about people seeing him flying around. She opened a drawer underneath a dark wooden hutch against the wall and pulled out a large pink box. But I have a set of clothes for you that might be a little more suitable for the occasion. She handed the box to Jenny. Hey, my name is on the lid, she pointed out when she noticed Jenny written in beautiful silver script in the bottom right corner. She opened the box to find a red satin blouse, a black blazer, and black dress pants, seemingly in her size. I have an outfit just like this at home, she said as she held up the blouse. Wait, are these my clothes? Mary smiled. No, dear. We just know what you like to wear and wanted to make sure you felt comfortable. He sees you when you're sleeping, Jenny sang again. Exactly. As Jenny went into the washroom to change into the pants and shirt, which, as suspected, fit her perfectly, she got a whiff of something delicious. When she reemerged, Mary was holding a plate of chocolate chip cookies in one hand and a glass of milk in the other. You look fabulous, dear. The perfect size, she assessed. A cookie and some milk for energy before your reading? That's what was smelling so good. How can I say no to freshly baked cookies? Of course, it was the best cookie she had ever tasted, and a sip of the milk made her sigh with delight. It was so fresh-tasting she would swear they had a cow out back somewhere. Her name is Bells, Mary said. Whose name is Bells? Jenny asked in the middle of a bite of cookie, thinking she had missed something. The cow. You were wondering about the cow that gives us such delicious milk. She is a treasure, that one. Oh, I think everything around here is pretty special. So you can...
I take things that come to me. Usually it's about what people want for Christmas, but I never pry. That would be rather rude. I'd never want to abuse my gift. What's that saying? With great power comes great responsibility. Jenny was surprised. Mrs. Claus could read minds. And here she was thinking she was supposed to be a nice little old lady just along for the ride who apparently liked Spider-Man. When Jenny was done with her snack, Mary took her napkin and glass away from her and put them on the kitchen counter. She took a breath. So, are you ready for the main event? Jenny smirked. You think I'm the main event? You might be used to all of this, Mary, but trust me, whatever is going on here is more impressive than anything I'm going to do. She suddenly realized that the most important part of the equation was missing and glanced around the room. But I don't have... Mary revealed a copy of Jenny's book, handed it to her, and gently patted her on the shoulder. Don't underestimate yourself, dear. Jenny and Mary left the cottage and moved over to another larger building that looked like an old-time movie theater, complete with a marquee that currently read, Special Guest Tonight. She was again surprised that she didn't need her coat and felt rather comfortable. This is where we hold all of our performances and all-hands meetings, Mary explained as she opened one of the 3 large doors with brass handles shaped like candy canes. All-hands meetings, Jenny thought. That's a work thing. Not that she would expect anything different. This was a serious operation. Well, you don't bring toys to children all over the world in less than 24 hours by being laissez-faire about it, don't you? Mary said in answer to the contemplation. The building housed an auditorium that was all decked out for the holidays, though Jenny presumed it was their all-year-round decor. With garland draped everywhere, large sparkly snowmen seeming to greet you in the lobby. Christmas trees with presents of all sizes underneath stood on either side of the stage, which also showcased a large chair, the type of chair in which one would wish to conduct a fireside chat, where Jenny guessed she was going to be doing her reading. They went backstage where she waited in the wings to be introduced and periodically peeked around the curtain to see the goings-on. In the back of the room, plates of chocolate chip cookies and glasses of milk sat on a long table draped with a snowflake tablecloth. As the elves started to arrive, they grabbed a glass and a cookie or two and took a seat. Eventually, some were even sitting cross-legged on the floor in front. She had never read in front of such a large audience. It was a packed house. Finally, Mrs. Claus looked at her watch. All right, dear, it's showtime, she said to Jenny. I know you're nervous, but don't be. All of those elves out there love you already. You're going to be fabulous. She stepped onto the stage in front of the crowd. Please take your seats, everyone. As always, you have all been working so hard this year, and Mr. Claus and I are truly grateful for your efforts. So we have a very special treat for you tonight. As some of you may already know, I overheard you spilling the tea, Gingy. The author of one of your favorite books is here in person to read to you, and we couldn't be more excited. So, without further ado, please welcome Miss Jenny Pringle. As Jenny walked to the center of the stage, her nerves only intensified. She was no stranger to doing readings, but this was on a different level. She sat in the chair, almost crushing the book that she had written over 20 years earlier. She caressed the cover and looked down at the illustration of the cute little mouse sitting on a mountain of chocolate, preparing herself for what she was about to do. How did she end up here? She knew, of course. She remembered every minute since she turned the corner from the hallway to find Santa in her living room sitting in her chair. But it was just so unfathomable. She looked up at all of those expectant elven faces, the young ones and the elders alike, with their eyes wide open and pointed ears ready to listen to her, and suddenly realized she was just there to bring them joy and make them happy, and there was no reason to be nervous about that. She took a deep breath. Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all. I was so thrilled when Santa told me that you liked this book, How Much Chocolate Can One Mouse Eat? I'm truly honored and delighted to be here. The elves clapped loudly. So let's get started, shall we? Jenny smiled, opened the book to the first page, and began to read. How much chocolate can one mouse eat? She turned the page. Millie the mouse loved chocolate more than anything in the world. She dreamt about it day and night, and while she always had plenty of food to eat, she usually found herself wishing it was chocolate. The elves, famous for their love of sweet things, whispered to each other and nodded in understanding. One evening, as she was wandering down the street, she came across a large building with a door that was slightly ajar. So, being the curious mouse that she was, she went inside, not yet knowing that she was, in fact, entering a chocolate factory. The elves listened with rapt attention, some holding their arms close to their chests, they were so excited. Jenny continued to read, delighting the elves with Millie's adventures in the factory. She loved how much the elves seemed to love the story, and she loved the joy she felt in sharing it with them. At one point, she looked into the auditorium and saw Santa standing in the back, all smiles. As she neared the end of the book, she was well aware that her adventure was likely coming to its own conclusion. After that night, you would think Millie would never want to eat chocolate again. But you would be wrong. The end. At those final words, Jenny closed the book, and the elves erupted in applause, giving her a standing ovation. She sat there for a moment and took it all in, wondering how she would go about describing the experience to someone else. Then it occurred to her that she might never get the chance to share her story, since she didn't know how much of it she would actually remember. How had Santa described it? Like a dream. And she had never been good at remembering her dreams. Mrs. Claus clapped as she took the stage. "Oh, well, thank you so much, Jenny. That was just delightful." She pointed to a small table with a green velvet cloth and a wooden chair at the back of the auditorium across from the cookies and milk. "Now, Jenny has generously agreed to stay and sign your copies of the book. So if you would start a line at the table, we'll begin in a few minutes." Jenny had a wonderful time meeting the elves with names like Sparkles, Jingles, and Coco, and asking them questions about their lives at the North Pole. There were elves who had read her books over 20 years before, when they were young, and now had children of their own to share the stories with. As they expressed their appreciation of Jenny's efforts as a writer, she thanked them all for their hard work to help bring a Merry Christmas to children around the world. It was, as they say, a love fest. After a couple of hours, the last of the elves had headed off to bed. Mrs. Claus smiled at Jenny. "So how was it, dear?" she asked. "Did you enjoy yourself?" "Did I enjoy myself?" Jenny repeated. "I had no idea that the elves were so interested in my stories. Well, until tonight, I had no idea elves were actually real. But I've never seen such enthusiasm, and it was so lovely to meet them." Santa Claus, who was finishing up chatting with one of the remaining elves, came to join the conversation. "It kind of puts everything into perspective, doesn't it, to see firsthand the impact you've been making in the world?" "No kidding. I had no idea all of this was happening. I knew some kids liked my books, but I could never have imagined I had so many fans. And I feel like I just want to keep writing. There's so many stories left to tell and so much joy to share." "Good," Santa replied with a satisfied nod. He gestured to the door. "Well, what do you say, kiddo? Shall we get you home?" Jenny sighed. "I suppose so. I have a meeting with my publisher in the morning that I'm probably already going to be late for." Something occurred to her. "Wait, isn't it the middle of the night here? What were the little ones doing up so late? Or maybe we're in an earlier time zone up here. How does that work exactly?" "Oh, didn't you know? At the North and South Poles, there are no time zones. It's whatever time we want it to be. Well, within a 24-hour period at any rate." "Cool," Jenny replied. On the ride home, Jenny took the chance to ask Santa more questions about all of the secrets of how Christmas worked. He answered truthfully to it all. How the reindeer flew, why he lived at the North Pole, even while still maintaining he didn't fully understand everything himself. He explained that he had always felt chosen for the task and was more than happy to fulfill his destiny. Approaching the city lights, the sun had yet to rise with the short days of winter. When the sleigh touched down behind her house, Jenny didn't want to get out. She turned to face Santa. Am I really going to forget this? She asked, worried. You said tonight would serve as inspiration for my future books, and I can't be inspired by it if I can't remember it. Santa gave her an understanding nod. Here's the thing, kiddo. You're not going to remember it as though it actually happened. That would open up a whole can of worms that, frankly, you may not want to open. You'll want to tell everybody, and believe you me, trying to get people to believe something like this can be a big hassle. You're not wrong, Jenny agreed. But you'll be surprised at how a vision or an idea will show up. You might wonder where it came from, but it will spark something wonderful that you'll know is yours to share. Jenny wasn't sure that was an acceptable response. But I want to keep every single moment of this night with me. The feel of the wind, those adorable elves, these magnificent reindeer, almost hitting you with my giraffe. She laughed at the ridiculousness of their first encounter. Santa put a hand on Jenny's shoulder. Don't worry, Jenny, he assured her with a wink. It will all be there when you need it. You'll be going along, living your life. Then something will make you think of something else, and then, poof, you've got your invisible plane. My invisible plane, Jenny contemplated as she remembered their initial conversation on the way up to the North Pole. I guess I'll have to be satisfied with that. She looked Santa Claus in his glistening blue eyes. So I guess this is it then. It's time for you to go back and have wonderful dreams, he said. Can I give you a hug? She hesitated to ask. Of course you can. He chuckled and opened his arms. Bring it in. Jenny nestled into his beard and velvet coat. Thank you for tonight, she said with a whisper, almost in tears. I didn't know how much I needed it. Santa patted her on the head and smiled. That's what I'm here for, kiddo. As Jenny opened the door to her house without using a key, a little jolt of fear ran through her before remembering that, in all of the commotion, she hadn't locked the door before she left and hadn't even brought her keys with her. She hung up her coat at the entrance and glanced up at the clock on the wall in the living room. 12:07, she thought. She felt chilled. Am I coming in from outside at midnight? Was I sleepwalking or something? She had sleepwalked once or twice in her 20s, so it wasn't unheard of, but it did seem odd. The next morning when she woke up, Jenny was pleasantly surprised that her body wasn't aching as much as it had been. Must have found the perfect sleeping position, she thought. She made her way to the kitchen for her coffee and breakfast so she would be fully fed and caffeinated for her meeting. She noticed Ginny the giraffe on the small table by the couch. Jenny, she said aloud, what are you doing all the way out here, girl? Not wishing to alter her trajectory to return Jenny to her rightful place in the washroom, she carried the figurine into the kitchen with her and placed her on the counter. She opened the fridge and retrieved a mason jar filled with cold brew coffee she had prepared the day before. Cold brew! Ah! She laughed to herself. Then, why is that funny? Having enjoyed her coffee and breakfast of oatmeal and fruit topped with a few dark chocolate chips, she got dressed and prepared for her 9 o'clock meeting to discuss the marketing strategy for her upcoming release, Buttons on Everything. She went into her office and browsed through her bookshelf, filled with style guides, books about the craft of writing, author biographies, and all of her previous books, looking for a notebook where she usually wrote ideas and thoughts during the meetings. She came across her very first children's book, How Much Chocolate Can One Mouse Eat?, and caressed the cover with an illustration of Millie the mouse sitting on a pile of chocolate. Suddenly, a vision of Millie wearing a tiny pointed elf hat popped into her head. She thought. I wonder what Millie would think of being up at the North Pole with Santa. Maybe that should be my next book.